اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله أن قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة، فقلت عليك السلام. قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا، فقلت لا يعوذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال يا فاطمة ائتني بالكساء اليماني، فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني وغطيته به، فصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. اللهم صل على محمد. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بوالدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه، فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني والثمرة فوادي. فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذنني أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة. صلوات فريج اللهم صل على محمد. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بوالدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فوادي. فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه. السلام عليك يوم اختاره الله، أتأذنوني أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على. فأقبل إذا قال أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أم رسول الله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع والدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذنوني أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيء وخليفتي وصحب لبائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذنوني أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بزأتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأمي يد اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهمتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا هرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عادهم ومحبا لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على. وقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلك يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء. فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبالها وبنوها. اللهم صل على. فقال جبرائيل يا رب تأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا. فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرأك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلك يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله. فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين به الله إنهم كم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لأبي إن الله قد هو إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم محمد. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوس هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جم من شيتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جم من شيتنا ومحبينا وفيه محموم الله وفرج الله همه ولا مخموم الله وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجة. وقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وسئدنا وكذلك شيتنا وفاز وسئد في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس، سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس، زینب کا سہارا عباس عباس، سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس. تم تھے گانوں پہ تماچے کھاتی تھی سکینہ، رو رو کے فقط تم کو بلاتی تھی سکینہ. آ جاؤ خدا را عباس عباس، سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس. تم تھے میری چادر کی محافظ میرے بھیا، تم سو گئے میدان میں میرے چن گیا پردہ، سر کھل گیا میرا عباس عباس، سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس، سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس. سنتی ہوں کہ دریا پہ ہوا قبضہ تمہارا، اے بھیا مگر کے منہ تلک پانی نہ آیا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ عباس عباس، سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس. شبی کا سر پوست سے جب کاٹا گیا تھا، خنجر کے تلے بھائی نے ڈوبا کہا تھا، آؤ میرے بھیا عباس عباس، سکائے سکینہ عباس عباس. نعرے حیدری.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
یہ میرے چچا کا کلام ہے اور ہر سال میں پڑھتا ہوں. روح فرسا کتنی ہے تیری کہانی اے حسین، اور کر دیا پتھر دلوں کو جس نے پانی اے حسین، اور غیر فانی حق پہ قرباں ہو کے خود حق بن گیا. تیری مظلومی ہے اب بھی دل کی فاتح ہر جگہ، اور ظلم ہے شرم و حیا سے پانی پانی اے حسین. کیا کشش ہے درد کی دنیا سمٹ کر آ گئی، اور غم کا مرکز بن گئی تیری کہانی اے حسین. اور تیرے غم میں کون ایسا ہے جو وہ رویا نہیں، کی زمین و آسمان نے نوح خانی اے حسین. اور تو ہے مجھ سے میں ہوں تجھ سے اس نبی کے قول سے، تو ہے کردار نبی کی ترجمانی اے حسین. اور تیری زینب اور عابد کی زبانیں صبر میں، اور کربلا سے شام تک ہے مدح خوانی اے حسین. جو محبت میں تیری بہتے ہیں دریا درد کے، رک سکے گی کیا ان کی روانی اے حسین. اور ظلم کے شعلوں کو صادق تابع دیکھا کیے، اور پھر چھڑک دو آگ پہ خنجر کا پانی اے حسین. صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد. اور یہ دو شعر بھی آپ کو یاد رہیں گے. انسان کو چاہیے کہ خیال قضا رہے، اور ہم کیا رہیں گے جب نہ رسول خدا رہے. اور یا رب ہو بیچ میں لہد ذاکر حسین، ہو اس طرف نجف تو ادھر کربلا رہے. اللہ کیا نمک ہے کلام انیس میں، دشمن بھی گر پڑھے تو زباں پہ مزہ رہے. صلوات.
صلوات۔ اللہ ہی اللہ کیا کرو، دکھ نہ کسی کو دیا کرو، جو کائنات کا مالک ہے نام اسی کا لیا کرو۔ صلوات۔ ہمارا مقصد حیات ہے کہ اللہ راضی۔ حضور کی میں حدیث پیش کرتا ہوں کہ حضور کہتے ہیں کہ الفاطمہ تو بضعۃ منی، کہ فاطمہ میرے جگر کا ٹکڑا ہے، جس نے اس کو اذیت پہنچائی اس نے مجھے اذیت پہنچائی، جس نے مجھے اذیت پہنچائی تو اس نے اللہ کو اذیت پہنچائی۔ تو جیسے کہتے ہیں پنجابی میں کہ رب راضی تو سب راضی، تو رب ہی ناراض ہو گیا تو اس دنیا سے ہم نے کیا لیا کمایا۔ صلوات۔ اہل سنت کے صوفی شاعر مولانا روم فرماتے ہیں کہ چون صحابہ حب دنیا داشتن، مصطفیٰ را بے کفن بے گذاشتن، این مرا باور نمی آیت روئے اعتقاد، حق زارا خوردن و دین پیمبر داشتن۔ وہ تو زہرا کے منکرین کو اسلام سے خارج کر رہا ہے، کہ کہتے ہیں حق زارا خوردن و دین پیمبر داشتن۔ صلوات۔ آج کل یہ بڑا چرچا ہو رہا ہے کہ غم جو ہے وہ 3 دن سے زیادہ یا زیادہ 40 دن کے زیادہ نہیں منانا چاہیے۔ تو یہ غم نہیں ہے، غم حسین جو ہے وہ ایک احیاء کا، دین کے احیاء کا ایک واقعہ ہے، اور یہ کوئی اتفاقی واقعہ نہیں ہے، جیسے علامہ اقبال بھی فرماتے ہیں۔ صلوات۔ وہ کہتے ہیں کہ بھئی یہ 2 شہزادوں کی جنگ تھی، اور ایک جو کامیاب ہوا وہ دوسروں پر ظلم تو کرتا ہی ہے، تو اسے بھول جانا چاہیے۔ تو علامہ اقبال فرماتے ہیں صلوات۔ مدعائش سلطنت بودے اگر، با چرا ساما چرا کر دی سفر، یعنی امام حسین نے اگر جنگ ہی کرنا تھی تو وہ اپنے ساتھ بہادر لوگوں کو لے کے جاتے۔ حضرت حنفیہ جو کہ زمانے کے بہت مشہور جنگجو تھے، ان کو نہیں ساتھ لیا، اور عورتیں اور بچوں کو ساتھ لے کے کیوں گیا؟ تو کہتا کہ وہ جنگ کرنے کے لیے نہیں گئے تھے، وہ قربانی پیش کرنے کے لیے گئے تھے۔ مثلا ہم اگر کوئی پی ایچ ڈی وغیرہ کا کوئی مضمون لیتے ہیں تو پھر اسی کے اوپر ہی ہم قائم رہتے ہیں، ہم ادھر ادھر نہیں جاتے۔ تو امام حسین جو نکلے تھے وہ جنگ کرنے کے لیے نہیں نکلے تھے، بلکہ ایک قربانی پیش کرنے، ذبح نظیم کی جگہ قربانی پیش کرنے کے لیے گئے تھے۔ تو ایک مورخ لکھتا ہے کہ اگر امام حسین کی فوج کی اگر تجزیہ کیا جائے تو یا تو وہ بچوں کے اوپر منحصر جو جنگ سے واقف نہیں تھے، یا بوڑھے آدمی یا بوڑھے لوگ سے حبیب المظاہر جیسے، یا حضور خود لیٹ 50s میں تھے، 57 ایئرز ایج تھی. کہتا کہ اگر کوئی سپاہی تھا تو ان میں تو وہ تھا عباس، جو کہ صحیح معنی میں سپاہی کہلایا جا سکتا تھا. تو کہتا کہ مگر اس کو اجازت ہی نہیں دی. مولا نے انہیں پتا تھا کہ یہ اکیلا اس مقصد کو کہ ہم تو قربانی دینے کے لیے آئے ہیں، نہ کہ جنگ اور فتح کرنے کے لیے آئے ہیں، تو اس کو اجازت ہی نہیں دی مولا نے. تو اس لیے وہ یہ جو ان کا الزام ہے کہ یہ جنگ کے لیے نکلے تھے، دو شہزادوں کی جنگ تھی، تو اگر جنگ کے لیے نکلے ہوتے تو پھر وہ جنگ کرتے. صلوات. صلوات. حسین محسن انسانیت نقید ظفر، وہ روشنی کا پیمبر زندگی کی سحر، وہ جس نے حسن عمل کا ہمیں پیام دیا، وہ جس نے حسن عمل کا ہمیں پیام دیا. دیار ظلم میں رہنے کو بھی گناہ کہا، شہید ہو گیا باطل کے سامنے نہ جھکا. وہ حق کی راہ میں جان دے کے جاودان رہا. حسین نام ہے جس کا امام ہے میرا، حسین نام ہے جس کا امام ہے میرا، اسی کی نظریہ سلام ہے میرا. صلوات.
پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ. صلوات محمد وآل محمد. مرزا دوی کے کلام سے 4-5 بند اگر آپ کی اجازت ہو. شکریہ. جزاک اللہ. حیدر کا وہ گلشن ہے، وہ جعفر کا چمن ہے، جو چاند سا دولہا ہے، وہ فرزند حسن ہے، وہ زیر علم ابن شہ قلعہ شکن ہے. ہم شکل پیمبر ہے، وہ جو غنچہ دہن ہے. انسان یہ نہیں چاند اتر آیا زمین پر، محبوب خدا عرش پہ سایہ ہے زمین پر. یہ جسم لطافت میں فزوں ہے، کہیں جان سے افضل ہے یہ محبوب حسینان جہاں سے. کیا کہیے بجز صلی اللہ اور زبان سے. یوسف علیہ السلام یوسف یہ تجمل یہ تمک لائے کہاں سے، یہ جان ہے ہر ہاشمیوں مطلبی کی، اس میں تو ملاحت ہے رسول عربی کی۔ اس شان سے پہنچے سر میدان جو وہ جاں باز، جنگل کو لگے چاند زمین ہو گئی ممتاز، برسانے لگے تیر ہزاروں قدر انداز، پہلے ہرے غازی سے لڑائی ہوئی آغاز، انجام ہوا یہ کہ سفر کر گئے اکبر، سینے پہ سنا کھا کے جوان مر گئے اکبر، پیری میں ہوا داغ جو فرزند جوان کا، کم ہو گیا خون جس میں شہ تشنہ دہاں کا، ہر بات میں لکنت تھی یہ عالم تھا زباں کا، ماتم تھا برادر کا علم راحت جاں کا، کھل اٹھتے تھے فوجوں سے مبارز طلبی کے، 2 لاکھ کا نرغہ تھا نواسے پہ نبی کے، وہاں کانپتا تھا زوف سے ٹوٹا ہوا بازو، نہ تیغ پہ قبضہ تھا نہ تھا ہاتھ پہ قابو، ایک شیر کا لاشا نظر آتا تھا لبے جو، اور سامنے تھی لاش علی اکبر مہرو، سوتے تھے وہ تنہا جو ہزاروں سے لڑے تھے، ریتی پہ ورق مصحف ناطق کے پڑے تھے، حیدر کا وہ گلشن ہے وہ جعفر کا چمن ہے، صلوات محمد و آل محمد۔ بلند درود پڑھنے کا۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
شبر کا ماہرو تھا جلالت میں لاجواب، شبر کا ماہرو تھا جلالت میں لاجواب، ابرو تھے ذوالفقار تو چہرہ تھا خطا، ابرو تھے ذوالفقار تو چہرہ تھا فتا، بھیگی ہوئی مسیں خبریں آمد شباب، تیرا برس کے سن میں تھے جیسے ابو تراب، تیرا برس کے سن میں تھے جیسے ابو تراب، بہر جہاد صورت حیدر تنے ہوئے
جنت کے اشتیاق میں دولہا بنے ہوئے، جنت کے اشتیاق میں دولہا بنے ہوئے، شبر کا مارو تھا۔
صلوات۔
نے تمام مرحومین کے ساتھ بانی مجلس کے مرحومین کو ملا کے ایک سورہ فاتحہ۔ قاسم جو گرے گھوڑے سے تھا موت کا پہرا، قاسم جو گرے گھوڑے سے تھا موت کا پہرا، تھا خون میں ڈوبا ہوا وہ چاند سا چہرہ، تھا خون میں ڈوبا ہوا وہ چاند سا چہرہ، چھلنی تھا بدن تیروں سے ہر زخم تھا گہرا، خون سر سے بہا بن گیا ایک لڑیوں کا سہرا، اس طرح لرزتا ہوا لاشا نہیں دیکھا، اس شان کا کوئی کبھی دولہا نہیں دیکھا، اس شان کا کوئی کبھی دولہا نہیں دیکھا، ہر جوڑ تھا ٹوٹا ہوا ہر بند جدا تھا، بازو ہے یہ وہ جس پہ کہ تعویذ بندھا تھا، ارے کچھ ہوا سینہ تھا لہو سر سے بہا تھا، اس پھول سے بچے پہ عجب ظلم ہوا تھا، یہ وزن تھا ٹاپوں کا وہی ٹوٹ گئے تھے، سب پسلیاں سینے میں کہیں ٹوٹ گئی تھی، سب پسلیاں سینے میں کہیں ٹوٹ گئی تھی، میدان میں مدد کے لیے چلاتے تھے قاسم، جاتے تھے ادھر اور ادھر آتے تھے قاسم، دم اٹکا تھا اور چین نہیں پاتے تھے قاسم، لگتی تھی جو ٹاپیں تو تڑا جاتے تھے قاسم، گھوڑوں سے کچل جانے کی زحمت نہ دکھائے، اللہ کسی کو یہ مصیبت نہ دکھائے، اللہ کسی کو یہ مصیبت نہ دکھائے، شیخ خاک پہ بھائی کا پسر ڈھونڈ رہے تھے، شیخ خاک پہ بھائی کا پسر ڈھونڈ رہے ہیں، میدان میں وہ لاشا کہاں ڈھونڈ رہے، آنکھوں کا اندھیرا ہے مگر ڈھونڈ رہے، پر بھائی کا لخت جگر ڈھونڈ رہے، تبرا کے وہیں گرتے ہیں غش آتا ہے شے کو جب جسم کا ٹکڑا کوئی مل جاتا ہے شے کو جب جسم کا ٹکڑا کوئی مل جاتا ہے شے کو شبیر نے جس کو کبھی گودی میں سلایا ہاتھوں کو بھی چوما کبھی سینے سے لگایا تقدیر نے یہ آج عجب وقت دکھایا لاشا اسی بچے کا ہے چادر میں اٹھایا تھامے ہوئے کونے حسنے خستہ جگر ہے آزا کیے گری نہیں بیوہ کا پسر ہے آزا کیے گری نہیں بیوہ کا پسر ہے کہہ لیتے ہیں کچھ درد بتائے نہیں جاتے لاشیں کبھی سو میں اٹھائے نہیں جاتے گر شاردہ اپنی بچھائے نہیں جا ٹکڑے کبھی قاسم کے اٹھائے نہیں جاتے چادر کو تو تھامے ہوئے عباس کھڑے آئے اکبر بھی سہارے کے لیے پاس کھڑے ہیں اکبر بھی سہارے کے لیے پاس کھڑے ہیں کیا حال ہے لاش کا بتایا نہیں جاتا شبیر سے صدمہ یہ اٹھایا نہیں جاتا گہرا ہے بہت زخم چھپایا نہیں جاتا خیمے کی طرح پڑتے ہیں جایا نہیں جاتا اس غم کا کہاں بار اٹھا پائے گی بیوہ جب لاش پہ سر دیکھے گی مر جائے گی بیوہ جب لاش پہ سر دیکھے گی مر جائے گی بیوہ دل اپنا سنبھالا کبھی چادر کو سنبھالا خیمے کی طرف چلنے لگے سیاد والا تاریخ ہوا جاتا تھا آنکھوں کا اجالا چادر میں بندھی لاش کو جب سامنے ڈالا فروا نے یہ پوچھا کہ کہاں لال میرا ہے دل ہلتا ہے بتلائی ہے اس گٹھڑی میں کیا ہے دل ہلتا ہے بتلائی ہے اس گٹھڑی میں کیا ہے گٹھڑی جو کھلی حشر بپا ہو گیا ہر سو ٹکڑے تھا بدن لاش کا اور خون بھرے گے سو ٹاپوں کے نشان سینے پہ اور آنکھ میں آنسو پہچانیے ٹاپوں کے نشان سینے پہ اور آنکھ میں آنسو کہنے لگا آہستہ سے صحرا کا وہ مہرو یہ دیکھیے جو ایک تنے صد پاش احبابے پہچانیے قاسم کے یہی لاش احبابی پہچانیے قاسم کے یہی لاش احبابی قاسم جو گرے گھوڑے سے درود بر محمد و آل محمد
Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Zanabia, again, thank you, Jazakallah. I just want to go over our programs for the next few nights. After tonight's Majalis, we'll have Maghrib prayers, and there will be a question and answer session with the Maulana. If anyone has any questions and that they want to ask, we're going to be able to have a short session with the Maulana after Maghrib prayers. For tomorrow evening, the program is the same timing as tonight. We try to have the Majlis end by Maghrib, and inshallah everyone can arrive on time. For Shab Ashura on Monday evening, the Majlis will actually be starting after Maghrib prayers. So, but we will send updates out. We have been sending regular updates, so want to make sure that everyone is signed up on the Zanabia community WhatsApp group and emails. Just make sure that you're getting messages, so you're staying up to date on the events and announcements for Zanabia. So we have sent some updates. If you haven't received them, let us know and we will get you added to the proper WhatsApp group and make sure that you're staying up to date on that information. With that being said, inshallah on Wednesday, we will also have a question and answer session with Maulana, which will be geared more towards the youth, young adults, and the young at heart. So, but that'll be on Wednesday after Ashura. Again, we are honored to have Maulana Ali Sayyid Ali Qazwini visiting us. He's a native of Dearborn, Michigan. Again, his family needs no introduction. We are honored to have him continue his lectures with us this evening. And with that, I would ask Maulana to begin his lecture, but first I would ask for a salawat.
أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. Respected dear brothers and sisters, illuminate your hearts and minds in this majlis with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Julian was a young boy. He was around 6 or 7 when he discovered his passion for marine biology. He noticed that whenever he would go out with his parents to the zoo, he would always be stuck looking at the aquariums, various types of octopus, the fish that he would see. He in particular loved marine mammals, dolphins, whales, all these types of forms of marine biology. So he decided, when I grow up, I want to be a marine biologist. So Julian, he grows up, he goes through middle school, he goes to high school, he's in college, and throughout this time, he's tried to hold on to the aspiration of being a marine biologist. He's gone on so many field trips. He's gone to Puerto Rico with non-profit groups exploring coral reefs, protecting coral reefs, and protecting the ocean. But during his time in college, he's looking at his peers. One is entering medical school. The other is attending his MBA program. Right, so he, after much consultation, after much reflection, he says, you know what, maybe I should switch into a career that's more lucrative, right? Something that will provide me a steady stream of income so that I can live a happy life. True, while I do want to pursue my passions, let me settle the financial aspect first, and then maybe when I have time, marine biology can be my hobby. So he goes into finance, and he graduates. He's working at Wall Street. He's putting in that grind. He's working those long hours, right? building his CV. And eventually, Julian, he reaches his goal. He becomes vice president of a very prestigious company. But because of the demands of his work, the demands of his job, right, he's so busy, he doesn't have time to dedicate towards his hobby, which is marine biology. Not only that, he barely has enough time to see his wife and kids. And so in the midst of lots of family turmoil, him and his wife decide to separate. Now he's stressed, right? He needs to just let off some steam. So he decides to book a first-class ticket and go to Bora Bora. He has an ocean-front resort, and he's relaxing. So one day he says, you know what, let me go outside the resort. Let me see the city a little bit. So as he's walking, he arrives at a pier, and he sees a lone fisherman standing at his boat, counting his fish. And at his side is his young child, a 3 or 4-year-old son. So he goes, and with the broken language, right, trying to bridge the language barrier, he speaks to him. He says, are you a fisherman? He says, yes, this is my job. So he looks at the bowl, the bucket, and he sees there's maybe 6 or 7 fish. He says, is this all you caught today? He says, yeah, this is what I caught today. And this is towards the end of the day, late afternoon. Now, as he's speaking to him, he says, well, why don't you catch more? He says, well, this is what I need. He says, how about instead of fishing, you buy a net, right, a large net. You go out into the ocean, you cast it, you can gather more fish. So the local says, why? He says, well, in that case, eventually if you do this enough, you'll have more fish, you can sell more. Then you can buy a larger boat. He says, okay, what am I going to do with a larger boat? He says, if you have a larger boat, you can go deep sea fishing. And using that larger net, you can buy an even larger one. You can gather more fish. So he says, all right, what happens if I do that? He says, well, if all goes well, you'll be successful. Maybe, just maybe, you'll get a second boat, right? Your business will flourish, your business will expand, and you'll get a second boat. He says, all right, then what? What is getting a second boat going to help me with? He says, well, should be obvious by now. You're not getting the message. Your revenue will expand. You might get a third boat. He says, all right, at the end of all that, what am I going to get? He says, well, at the very end of all that, you'll be able to become so wealthy, amass such a fortune, that just like me, you can take a break from work, go on holiday, and enjoy the sunset in Bora Bora. So he's looking at his young child, the local, playing with the fish in the bucket, and it's almost sunset time. He looks at the man and he says, well, that's what I'm doing now. See, perhaps the local, he had a point. And maybe Julian, in all his years of expanding and amassing his fortune, he had lost the point. That local, he was content with what he had. Yes, perhaps it wasn't much. It wasn't fancy, not much bling bling, but it was what made him happy. And he knew that that small but sufficient amount of sustenance that he had granted him happiness. My dear brothers and sisters, part of what goes into the secret recipe of happiness is contentment. If you're not content with what you have, you'll never be happy. Once a narration states that at the time of Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, he was walking with his companions when they passed by a cave. He told his companions, let's enter. So as they're all entering the cave, they go so deep that sunlight can't penetrate anymore, it becomes dark. So they're all standing in the dark. They're asking, why do you bring us here? He said, we're in a place and there are things on the ground. Those who carry from what's on the ground, they'll be regretful. And those who don't carry will be regretful. It's like a riddle. When it's dark, they can't see what's going on. So he says, all right, 1, 2, 3, go. So they start chattering and discussing, should we take, should we not take? I mean, we're going to be regretful anyway. So Some of the companions, right? They say, all right, why trouble ourselves? They try to feel there's some rocks and stones on the ground. All right, we'll just be light, right? The others, some carry a handful. Some stuff their pockets. Some carry a bag's worth. Now, as they're leaving the cave, sunlight shines on them. What was inside that cave? They see it was littered with precious stones and gems. All types of fine jewelry, right? Raw minerals. So the companions, they looked at Prophet Musa. They said, why did you give us that riddle? He says, look at the discord that has enveloped between you. So they looked at the other companions. The one who did not carry anything is like, oh my God, missed opportunity of a lifetime, right? Why didn't I carry those precious stones and jewels? The one who carried a hand's worth, right, a handful, he says, why did I only carry a handful? And it was everywhere, right? It was littered on the ground. I should have carried more. And even the one who had a bag's worth, he's like, oh man, if only I brought my second bag. My dear brothers and sisters, if you are not content with what you have, no amount of what? Mountains worth of stones and jewels is going to be enough. In the art of the deal, former President Trump, and it seems like something's been going on today with him. I don't know, should we make dua or no? We'll make dua for the mu'mineen later. Allah will decide. In his book, The Art of the Deal, he states that I've amassed such a level of wealth, according to him, that for me, the prospect of the money itself is not, not too appealing. I'm already living in a penthouse. I have my gold, I don't know, Bentley or some kind of fancy car, right? Plated in gold. I have all the finest luxuries of life. But what gets me growing is, as I quote, the thrill of the chase. He says, just the idea that I could amass more wealth, that's what gets me going. That's why I go to work. That's why I work late hours. And that's why I continue the grind. Not because he wants more wealth. He already has enough. But simply because the idea of amassing more wealth, adding more digits to the bank balance, that is what entices him. If that's your mindset, are you ever going to be happy? 100 million? 500 million? 1 billion? What is the line of demarcation where after that you say, I've had enough? For individuals like that, where contentment is not available, there will never be a time in which you say, I've had enough, right? Because there's always a bigger yacht you can purchase. There's always fancier paintings you can install on your house walls, right? There's no limit to how far you can go. It's always a never-ending chase. Thus you find we have a beautiful hadith from Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, peace be upon him. In which he states, "Man lam yaqna'hu al-yasir, lam yanfa'hu al-kathir." Who a simple, moderate amount does not suffice for him, a large amount will also not suffice for him. If what's within your means, right? Having enough to live a comfortable, respectable life, if that's not enough for you, no amount that you try to reach will ever be enough. You're always going to be chasing what? A moving target. And never ever will that promised happiness ever arrive. We find in a narration attributed to one of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt. The Imam says, قال الله لداود. Allah Azza wa Jal is speaking to his prophet David. He tells him, وضعت الغنى في القناعة. I've placed ghina, or wealth, in contentment. Not in money, not in those Benjamins, right? Hard currency. In qana'a. وَهُمْ يَطْلِبُونَهُ فِي كَثْرَةِ الْمَالِ. But people, they try to find ghina or wealth in lots of wealth and money. فَلَا يَجِدُونَ. If you try to find ghina in lots of money, lots of wealth, amassing a huge fortune, you'll never ever attain it. That moving target will be constantly further and further from where you are. We find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the 3rd chapter, verse 14, states, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث ذلك متاع الحياة الدنيا والله عنده حسن المآب. People in this life, silver, gold, horses, which I can imagine at the time, right? If you had a fancy horse, that's like having a fancy car. These kind of things, they appeal to them. But what Allah promises you in the akhirah, that is true wealth. True wealth cannot be attained here. As that hadith in which Allah speaks to David says. True wealth awaits for you in the akhirah. If you continually pursue it here, you'll find you're in a never-ending race. Once Amir al-Mu'mineen was asked about this verse, فَلَنُحْيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. Allah says, those who engage in righteous action and in righteous belief, فَلَنُحْيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. We will grant them a good life, حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. So he was asked, what is حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً? What does that mean? The Imam says, هِيَ الْقَنَاعَةِ. It's contentment. You engage in righteous belief, righteous action, Allah will place within your heart contentment. Contentment, my dear brothers and sisters, is worth more than multiple valleys of gold, valleys of treasure. Because no matter how many valleys you'll have, you'll want a second one. And that's literally what the hadith of Rasulullah says. He says, if Allah was to give man a valley of gold, he'll ask Allah, why don't you give me a second? Right? Because we'll always want to continually amass more and more wealth. We have a beautiful hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen in which he states, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. All right. Just my dear brothers and sisters, quick note, please come forward so that those who are entering have enough space to enter. Another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This narration states, طَلَبْتُ الْغِنَى فَلَا وَجَدْتُهُ إِلَّا بِالْقَنَاعَةِ. I searched for wealth, I found it to be contained only within contentment. عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْقَنَاعَةِ تَسْتَغْنُوا. Search and try to become more content, therefore you will become wealthy. In another narration he says, لَا كَنْزَ أَغْنَى مِنَ الْقَنَاعَةِ. No treasure, even the ones by the pirates, right? Littered with gold and silver and all kinds of jewels and diamonds. No treasure is greater than the treasure of contentment. And my dear brothers and sisters, treasures might be found externally, right? Hidden under some island within the Caribbean. But this inner treasure known as qana'ah, you don't have to go far. You don't have to search the 7 seas in order to find this treasure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed qana'ah within each and every single one of us. We just have to look inwards. What is it that truly makes me happy? Is it this gold and the silver and a big house and this and this and this? And you can have all this, by the way. But be content in what you have. Whatever Allah has given you, say, this is enough for me. We might ask, Amir al-Mu'mineen, with all this talk, does he walk the walk? Does he practice this? In Najl al-Balagha, he states, أَلَا وَقَدْ اكْتَفَى إِمَامَكُمْ مِنْ دُنْيَاهِ بِطَمْرَيْهِ وَمِنْ طُعْمِهِ بِقُرْصَيْهِ. He says, as for your Imam, meaning himself, he has satisfied himself of this dunya with 2 pieces of cloth. And from his food and diet, 2 loaves of bread. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen. We mentioned the story last night in which one of his assistants during his time of Khilafah saw him tying his sandal, repairing his sandal, and he says, you're the caliph, right? You could have 20,000 shoes of gold. Why are you repairing your sandal? He looks at him and he says, this Khilafah is worth less than a sandal to me. Right? Amir al-Mu'mineen, he had that inner treasure known as contentment. What did he have that was greater than Khilafah, than all the treasure offered by the universe? Once, a companion asked him, he says, are you greater or Rasulullah? How did the Imam respond? What was the treasure according to Amir al-Mu'mineen? He says, أنا عبد من عبيد محمد. I am a slave from the slaves of Muhammad. This is the treasure that Amir al-Mu'mineen takes pride in. This is his inner treasure. No man of gold, no man of anything of this material possession could ever infatuate the Imam. Anything like being a servant of Rasulullah. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Sometimes, my dear brothers and sisters, what leads to a lack of contentment is looking at how other people lead their lives. Right? We see our neighbors keeping up with the Jones. They've gotten a new vehicle, right? The latest 2024 model. Or they've gotten the latest nice watch. And by the way, I remember once it was reported that a Russian politician on a $90,000 salary, he was seen in a report sporting a $4 million watch. Allahu A'lam, where this wealth might have come from. But see, if you are not content, that drive for more and more and more and more will perhaps even lead you to what? Trying to amass all this wealth through illegitimate means. And that's a very dark turn, very dark corner to turn to. That's, my dear brothers and sisters, it's important not to look at those who have greater than us, right? Yes, there might be a certain segment of the population in which they enjoy greater riches than us. But also look at all your fellow brothers and sisters and fellow human beings on this earth that are going through more difficult circumstances than you. We have a hadith from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, peace be upon him. In which he states, انظر إلى من هو دونك في المقدرة. Look at someone who is less than you in your, what we'd now term, SES, or socioeconomic status. Look at someone who is living below your means. Why? ولا تنظر إلى من فوقك بالمقدرة. Don't look at someone who's living above your means, above your SES. فإن ذلك أقنع لك بما قسم لك. For that will give you more contentment in what Allah has provided for you. Yes, if you constantly go on social media, and social media is a great tool for this, right? You don't want to be content in life, just go on social media. Everyone is living a happy life. Everyone is always traveling, always happy, beautiful family gatherings. But that's only the surface, my dear brothers and sisters, right? We like to put on a show, right? We come on to work, to school, to the mosque, dressed very nicely, mashallah. Many of us are professionals. But don't we all go through struggles, right? We don't always show off those struggles. The same way and the same type of thing applies to others, right? You might see everyone else on social media enjoying wonderful, lavish lives, but that's only the surface. We don't know what kind of family struggles people are going through. And in fact, many of these influencers on social media, right, they finance their lifestyles, right? It's all on credit. It's not real. What is real? What is not? My dear brothers and sisters, the only real thing we know is contentment. Materials may go and come, but as long as you're content, that's an everlasting and permanent inner feeling. In 2019, Butler University conducted a study, and part of their findings was that what they termed downward social comparison, meaning very similar to what the Imam referenced, looking at those who live below your means leads to greater increases in mental health. Whereas upward social comparison, similar to what the Imam was referencing, leads to jealousy, to envy, and to worse and deteriorating mental health. SubhanAllah, something that the Imam was speaking of 14 centuries ago, now they're using studies to exhibit the same findings. Thus, my dear brothers and sisters, we have to look not at those who have very small segments of the population that live better than us. Look at all those who are living below your means. We are very privileged, my dear brothers and sisters. Very privileged. My respected father, he was once invited to a conference in the country of Madagascar, in Africa. It's an island off the coast of Africa. Now, as he was there, his local host was driving him to the center. He saw they passed by an area that seemed to look like a dumpster. And he saw many people gathered there. So he asked the host who was driving him, he's like, why are there people there? He says, Sayyid, we have a phrase here. We have a saying, and it's originally in French, but I'll translate it for you. They used to be a former French colony. He says, this saying, this phrase says there are the three friends, right? The three amigos. Who are they? It's the human, the cat, and the mouse. Why are these three friends? He says, because here, unfortunately, in many areas, at the dumpsters, you'll find these three groups trying to find food. That's how many people make their living. We are very, very privileged, my dear brothers and sisters. If you have a constant food supply, you are living better than 2.8 billion people across this globe. That's billion with a B. 2.8 billion people across this globe, many of which, including the United States, suffer from what's known as food insecurity. They don't know if tonight, after the majlis is done, or after the day is finished, they'll have food on the table. And can you imagine, in this context of so many people going through these struggles, according to the USDA, 120 billion, that's billion with a B, pounds of food is wasted in the United States every single year. 120 billion pounds of food. According to the USDA, that's 30 to 40% of the entire food supply. So 30 to 40% of fresh food goes to waste. Isn't this nashukri? Isn't this doing kufr in the ni'mah of Allah? Allah says, وَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful, then I will increase. But if you do this kufr of the ni'mah, kufr of the blessings of Allah, this invokes the wrath and the curses of Allah. We have to be very careful. If you have running water at home, you're in a better position than 2.6 billion individuals across this globe who do not have access to safe, clean drinking water. Now, I currently live in Iraq. In Iraq, if you open the tap water, I don't know what it is that comes out, but it's not water, right? It's half brown and muddy, and many people across the globe, they don't have access to basic services. Right? We're not talking about, having high-speed internet and having all the luxuries of life, a large mall, right, that you can go every week and shop at. No, we're talking about food, water. My dear brothers and sisters, consider yourselves lucky to be on a place here. In the United States, you can go out, right, knowing that this country is secure. You don't have to worry for your children's future. As many of our fellow human beings, many of our fellow brothers and sisters in faith, they struggle. Right? Look at Gaza, look at beyond Gaza. Many people, they send their children to school not knowing if they'll come back. Every few weeks in Afghanistan, there's a bombing inside a Shia school. One of which last year killed 104 young girls between the ages of 6 and 9. Right? Imagine, every day you farewell your daughter in the morning and you don't know if they'll be back. My dear brothers and sisters, we are truly, truly privileged. We sometimes do not understand how privileged we are. All Allah asks for in return is be grateful. Send your shukr to Allah Azza wa Jal, and understand the privilege and acknowledge the privilege that you've been given and strive for contentment. Why would we not be content, my dear brothers and sisters? Allah has given us everything we can strive for. Despite our problems, we all have problems. Allah has blessed us more than what we're deserving of. And finally, my dear brothers and sisters, one of the greatest blessings that you can have is attending majalis like this. It is an honor that Allah bestows upon you if you're able to attend the majalis of Abi Abdullah. These majalis are where the angels circumambulate around us. These majalis are where our du'as are answered. Don't we all have hajat? Don't we all ask Allah for more? We should be content, right? But if we have hajat, this is the place upon which we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all the tawfiq of having contentment, the tawfiq of continually attending the majalis of Abi Abdullah. For that is an honor not given to any individual. Consider yourself among the honored ones of Allah to be able to attend these majalis. My dear brothers and sisters, let us now go to Karbala. It's now the 10th day of Ashura, and one of the sacrifices of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba will be sacrificed today. This shining young moon known as Al-Qasim ibn al-Hassan. Al-Qasim was a very young boy when his father was martyred. He grew up under the tutelage of his uncle Imam al-Hussein. He was his second father. But on the day of Ashura, he was the personal sacrifice of Imam al-Hassan. The night before Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein amassed all his companions and he told them that tomorrow is the day of struggle and tomorrow is the day of martyrdom. This young boy, 13 years old, he was 13 or 14, very young. He comes to his uncle, he comes to Abu Abdullah and he says, Amma, wahal ana mimman yuqtal? Am I also going to be one of those who dies? Imagine, his uncle Abi Abdullah sees this young child asking this question. What's he going to tell him? Yes? He's a young boy. But he knew this is the personal sacrifice of his brother Hassan. He wanted to test him. He said, O Qasim, Bunay, kayfa tara al-maut? How do you see death? Are you afraid? What's the response of this 13-year-old boy? He says, Ya amma, al-mawtu fika ahla min al-hasan. Death for you in your service, in your path is sweeter than honey. This is a 13-year-old boy speaking. Many of us, we find any minor inconvenience with our faith and we get frustrated. And yet this young 13-year-old boy, he's willing to set aside his life and he tells his uncle it's sweeter than honey. The night passes, the day of Ashura is nigh. Al-Qasim, he goes out to the desert, he sees the bodies of all the companions scattered. He looks and he sees the bodies of Ali al-Akbar. He sees the body of his uncle Al-Abbas. He can't take it anymore. He goes and he farewells his mother Ramla. And it's as if she says, it's as if he looks at her and says, Oh mother, whenever you see a young youth, remember me. And whenever you get a cup of water, remember me. He goes to his uncle Imam al-Hussein, he asks for permission to fight. Now unlike the companions, whom when they would ask, he would at first tell them no. Unlike some of his own family members who he would tell them no, he looked at Al-Qasim and he gave an absolute no. He says, Qasim, you're all that's left of my brother Hassan. How could I let you go? The narration says, upon hearing that, Qasim was in despair. He falls upon the feet of his uncle. He starts kissing his foot. He says, Uncle, please allow me to go. I can't stand this anymore. I can't stand the cries of the young girls and the ladies. Afterwards, he gets up. His uncle, according to the reports, Abi Abdullah, he begins hugging Al-Qasim. They hug for so long that they both fall unconscious. This is the only time our report states Imam al-Hussein fell unconscious on the day of Ashura. After they regain consciousness, he asked for permission for the final time. His uncle Abi Abdullah, he kisses him and he farewells him. He goes to the tent. He gathers the helmet and the armor of his father Imam al-Hassan. He carries the sword of his father Imam al-Hassan. He mounts his horse and he begins heading towards the enemies. Now these enemies, they don't know him. They've never seen him before. So there's chatter among the enemy lines. Who is this? Why have they sent a boy to fight us? And then Imam al-Hasan, he looks towards the enemies and he begins reciting the following lines. إن تنكروني فأنا نجل الحسن صبط النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن. If you do not know me, I am the son of Hassan, the grandson of the Prophet of Allah. إن تنكروني فأنا نجل الحسن صبط النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن. هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن وسط أناس لاصبوا سوق المزن. This is Hussein, my uncle, besieged among these animals, among these criminals, these animals who have no mercy at all. Now Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan, he was bright, he was a valiant soldier, he was shining like the moon, but he was a young boy. He fought as strongly and as powerfully as he could, but these enemies began surrounding him. In the midst of the fight, suddenly the strap on his sandal, it unbuckles. He bends down in order to fix his sandal when one of these enemies, too coward to fight him one-on-one, oh believers, he comes from behind Al-Qasim and he strikes him on that. Al-Qasim, he falls down from his horse on the sand. Now all the companions, all the relatives of Imam al-Hussein, as they fall down, they look towards the camp and they recite, As-salamu alayka ya ibn Rasulullah. But this was Qasim, the 13-year-old boy. He looks and he says, Amma hadrikni. My uncle, come save me. Imam al-Hussein, he begins rushing, the enemies disperse. He falls upon the body of Al-Qasim, but it's too late. His soul had been separated from his body. Imam al-Hussein, he looks at him. He tells him, يَعَزُّ عَلَىٰ عَمِّكَ أَن تُنَادِيهِ فَلَا يُجِيبُكَ أو يجيبك فلا يغني عنك. It's difficult upon the heart of your uncle. You call upon him, but he can't answer you. Or he answers you, but he cannot aid you. Abi Abdullah, the narration states, he gathered the young Hashemites, the young relatives that were remaining, and they began dragging the body of Al-Qasim. Through the desert, Imam al-Hussein instructs them to place the body of Al-Qasim by the body of his son Ali al-Akbar and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas.
إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون فسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين.
Dear brothers and sisters, tonight is the night, insha'Allah, where our hajat will be answered. God willing. Let us all raise our hands and recite the blessed verse 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. O Allah, we ask you to grant us our hajat. O Allah, we ask you to send down your serenity and your contentment upon the mu'mineen. O Allah, we ask you to grant shifa to all those who are ill, especially those of our loved ones today, and upon the souls of our loved ones, those who are deceased, those who have contributed towards this majlis, and those who have attended. Let's all recite Surah Al-Mubarakah Al-Fatiha.